Okay, so Ralph can't see you guys, but I actually have a Spider-Man cup in my hand. It's my mug. I just thought I'd show you guys why, like how I get so many ladies. You just walk in with Spider-Man mugs, you know, Mario Kart themed banana pillows like I've got here.
I think it's that rug behind you that really would just
I was going to say that too.
That would really convert. You know what I mean? Like,
we thought I'd give a little bit of advice for how to get the ladies, okay? Before we get to the Resident Evil, because Resident Evil Nemesis is all about getting them ladies. Am I right, Ralph? Oh, what a segue!
Ooh, okay.
Oh, what
That's
a
actually
segue!
not a bad segue.
What a
I'll
segue!
give you that one.
All right, we're ready. Let's go.
Resident Evil 3 Nemesis came out. Wait, no, Resident Evil 3 Remake came out last week. I reviewed it. People loved my review. Very, very popular review on the internet.
Definitely.
And Sam actually got the chance to play it over the weekend in between bouts of Final Fantasy. So let's now. You finished it, haven't you, Sam?
I finished it.
Okay, cool. All right, we're going to do a complete review now. Here's the Layman review: Resident Evil 3 Remake. It's the week of remakes, isn't it, Sam? We've got Final Fantasy VII Remake.
I'm feeling happy about it.
We had Black Mesa before that, the Half-Life remake. Before that, we had Halo. So it's pretty wild for remakes this year. Capcom was on a pretty amazing tear over the last 2 years, basically, with Devil May Cry, with Monster Hunter World, with Monster Hunter Iceborne, and with Resident Evil 2 Remake. Absolutely loved Resident Evil 2 Remake. What I learned from the fandom is that they think that game was not good, or at least it was missing too much stuff. And so the core Resident Evil... Yeah, really? I learned this the hard way, because I'm like, I think Resident Evil 2 is a really amazing game, and blah, blah, blah. And they're like, no, actually, it cut this, and this. And I'm like, all right, okay, fine, I understand. According to the Resident Evil 2 fandom, Resident Evil 2 Remake is not good, okay? And I learned that the hard way in my comment section, okay?
Wow, I disagree with that.
I personally think the Resident Evil 2 Remake was fantastic. I loved it. It was one of my Game of the Years last year. I loved it so much, okay?
Well, wait till you play the new one, baby.
Well, I feel disappointed with Resident Evil 3 Remake, and I said that in the video. And, you know, there's quite a few reasons for this, okay? So first of all, actually, let's start with Sam. Sam, what do you think overall of Resident Evil 3 Remake?
I was going to say, well, how about I say what I think, okay?
Go on.
The diva needs to speak. The talent is here. No, okay, I think, firstly, the game is about 4.5 hours, 5 hours, all right? Now, that's pretty similar to the previous one. But compared to playing Resident Evil 2 only about, 12 months ago, there was a feeling like this was a quicker and a bit more of a more thinner experience, it wasn't as fleshed out. Having said that, when I finished the entire thing, I still had a pretty good time. I still had a pretty good time. I did not finish this going, wow, what a terrible, terrible Resident Evil. I just thought there was a little bit missing, in terms of it didn't have the same movement forward. It didn't move as much forward compared to how much I felt Res 2 Remake did, in terms of taking something that we all know and love 20 years ago and reimagine it slightly, but at the same time, the core of it is there, and it just felt like such an amazing experience that felt fresh in 2019. And when I played Res 3, it felt fine, but it did not feel like it moved as much forward as Res 2, personally.
Yeah, look, I totally agree with that. I feel like, firstly, this game does follow very closely in the footsteps of Resident Evil 3 as the little brother or sister of Resident Evil 2. Okay, Resident Evil 2 is still looked back on as sort of like the peak of the franchise, or at least back for that classic era. And then Resident Evil 3 came along with less development time. It was more actiony. It was shorter because it didn't have the Route A, Route B playthrough, etc. So everyone kind of looked at it as like, it's not as good as Resident Evil 2. It's the same sort of thing here, right? Where, this is a shorter game, okay? Basically, Resident Evil 2 had that Route A, Route B playthrough option. You probably got a total of 10 hours playtime with that playing through for the first time. With this one, it is roughly 5 hours. I think, Sam, you said you finished it in 4.5 or something?
I finished it in about 4.5, yeah. I think you finished it in 5:18. Yeah. So I think roughly in the middle of that, it's probably about going to be 5. Yeah.
Yeah, and so there's no Route A, Route B playthrough. It's just that's it. It's done. There is a new game plus that opens up where you can bring items from the menu into a new playthrough of the game, like a coin that's constantly refilling your health, etc. There's no live selection. Resident Evil 3 Nemesis had this whole live selection thing where you had the game paused and you'd make a choice about what you want to do, and that would affect your playthrough route, it would affect your ending. There's no multiple endings. There are significant portions of this game, of the original, that are not present in this game, which I won't spoil. If you haven't played it, you can go check that out for yourself.
Yep.
It's just, it's cut a lot of stuff from it, and I just feel as though it crosses that threshold of being like, okay, well, really, this doesn't feel like great commitment to the source material. It feels like you just tried to turn around something really fast, you know. And I do look back on it and I think, you could have done a lot more with this and made a better version of Resident Evil 3 Nemesis. This feels like kind of a worse version, to be honest.
It definitely does feel like and there's nothing wrong with reusing assets. I felt like they put a lot of time and effort into the Rez 2. I felt like there was a lot of things that I have already seen. There was also areas that you had already seen from Resident Evil 2. You go to the police station again, that's known anyway in Resident Evil 3. So naturally, there's going to be a less development time because a lot of these things have already been made, right? But I would have thought.
To be clear, sorry to interrupt you. Sorry, just to be clear, that's correct when it does that because the original did that.
That's what I mean. That's fine. That's fine. What I'm saying is, given that there was already so many areas that have already been pre-made from the Resident 2 area, I felt like maybe there's some time to do extra kind of interesting things with Resident Evil 3, but
100%.
I didn't feel like they really realized any of those ideas, or maybe they weren't as creatively ambitious. Maybe they just were like, look, we just want to deliver this. And that made, when I finished this, I was like, oh, no wonder they can get this out within 12 months. Like, no wonder, you know, because...
No, this was actually being developed by another team in parallel. So it wasn't like they just started development and turned around.
But I'm sure they're sharing assets, right? I'm sure they're like, hey, look, we've made this. Here's an entire police station, you know? So...
Yeah.
I think that's definitely happened. But another thing is the Nemesis, man. You know, let's go with the Nemesis. Ralph, you want to take the Nemesis, my friend?
So in my review, one of the reasons people hated my review, because I was like, the Nemesis can appear anywhere and he's random or whatever else. Okay, look, that's not true. I misspoke. Honest to goodness, when I remember Resident Evil 3, I definitely remember him feeling far more present than he was, and it felt random at times because there were little slots, depending on what you did and how and whether or not you choose to face him and whatever else, that he could pursue you more often, and it kind of felt random. But yeah, I know it wasn't random. Okay, I misspoke. It was scripted in its own way, but it really felt much more organic, and it really felt much more like he was quite omnipresent in Resident Evil 3 Nemesis, and in this one he is not that at all. Okay, he appears in scripted moments only. In the city, he kind of pursues you a little bit in a scripted sequence. In the rest of the game, it's just the cutscenes, and when you do encounter him, it's most of the time, it's like running away from him, and then it ends in a cutscene or a boss battle.
Yeah.
He just isn't this kind of shadow looming over you. He's just this guy that you know you will eventually have to face at the end of the level that you are currently clearing. That's the easiest way to think about it. You know what I mean?
Let me just start by saying, absolute fraud, Skellup is. How dare you not remember something 20 years ago in terms of how the gameplay felt 20-something years ago? Absolute
I've shamed
fraud.
myself.
Totally shamed yourself, right? Number two, look, I do feel like there was less of a presence here in Nemesis. That's probably why they dropped the name Nemesis, right? This is called Resident Evil 3.
I think so too.
I feel like I feel like they went, well, let's drop that because he's not going to be in this as much. Having said that, especially at the beginning when you are in the kind of open area, what's it called?
Downtown?
Downtown, there we go. You do see quite a bit of the Nemesis, and he is kind of overshadowing a lot of those areas, especially when you've opened a certain door or something, and then of course something clicks within the code, and then he pops out of nowhere. But as the story goes on, you see less of him, and he becomes more different from how you remember him too, you know, in terms of his physical appearance. But that's something we can come back to later. But I do think that there's a little bit less of him in this, and he is
a lot less of him in this.
Yeah, okay, fine. But I do feel like this one, it doesn't feel like he's going to be like around every corner potentially. It feels like at the beginning of the game, you do see him a lot more, and then as it goes on, you are expecting him less and less, you know, and that kind of does come true.
People in the comment section will say it was like that in the original. Sure.
Okay,
my point is that it's even more like this here, to a ridiculous degree. And I feel like with Resident Evil 2, with Mr. X, Tyrant, whatever, you know, you had a template there. You're like, oh, imagine what they're going to do with Nemesis if they can do this shit with Mr. X. And instead of going that way, they went the exact opposite way and just completely gutted him and whatever else. So that point was a really big disappointment for me. Yeah, look, overall, I think as one of the things I also regret about my review was that I probably didn't summarize and say that, look, it's a fun game. Like, I had a good time with it for 5 hours. But my point is that, you know, it's cool, but it's like, I don't think this is a $60 product, you know? I'm not interested in the Resistance game mode. I don't care. You know, they want to bundle it together. We played a little bit of it, very small amount, and I just don't like it. You know what I mean? I do not have interest in playing more of it. I play Resident Evil for the single player stuff, and I don't feel like this should have been a $60 product. You know what I mean? Like, I really feel at a $20, $30 price tag, it would have been great. And this is another point that I didn't make in the review. Times have changed since 1998 or whenever Resident Evil 3 was released, okay? Back then we had different standards, we had different business models, etc., etc. Back then you could reuse huge portions of a game and release something a year later and still charge the same price for it. And gamers are like, no problem. But in 2020, we have the internet, we have DLC, we have all those business models that exist. And this product feels like it belongs in that DLC business model bucket. Do you know what I mean?
I don't know if it feels like a DLC. I do feel like...
I feel like it does.
I feel like it probably should be a little bit less, but I don't feel like it should be $20. If we're talking $20 US... maybe 35 or something, you know, like a little, like 35 to 40. The reason I'm putting it a little bit high because I feel like once it gets to that threshold, then it no longer can be considered DLC. I don't think it should be DLC. I do feel like it can stand alone as its own game. I feel like it's just not as fleshed out as what I would have liked, but not fleshed out too little to be considered a DLC, in my opinion.
I mean, yeah, I would just say that Capcom just last year released One Time to Iceborne, which is like 60, 70 hours plus of gameplay. I haven't played it yet, by the way, but I know that all the fandom go completely apeshit nuts for it. And that was an expansion to Monster Hunter World. This is more expensive than that, and it's not an expansion. And I just think, obviously, you can't compare games like that. Totally
it's a different thing. It's a different offer.
I get it. But what I'm saying is just, let's just say that there's a value for money equation that I think we can apply in a general sense. And I don't think Resident Evil 3 stacks up in 2020. That's all I will say.
Yeah. Especially when people realize that they can finish it in 4.5 hours. Even though that may be similar to the original one, there is going to be maybe a discussion around there that have we moved forward in the last 20 years that you can't actually, you know, charge $60 for a 4.5 hour experience. But look, all in all, what do you think? All in all, I think...
all in all, as I said, fun game. A bit too actiony for my tastes, but that's how the original was. A few too many quick time events and action sequences that just like hold the forward button. But, you know, look, overall, I spent 5 hours with it and had a good time. If I paid $20 to $30 for this, I would have said, yeah, cool, well done, Capcom. It's fine. It's missing a lot of stuff, but look, you gave us a $30 expansion that I had a ball with. But as I said, in the light of the missing content, in the light of the gutted Nemesis, in the light of the price tag, etc., I'm going to say that it's personally disappointing for me.
I had fun with it, you know, like I had fun with it,
sure.
But, you know, it definitely didn't reinvent the wheel of what I thought Rez 3 is. And I wouldn't finish it again, you know. Rez 2, yeah. I could definitely sit there and go, I want to finish this again, because I feel like this is a real love letter, as you've said before, to the Resident Evil series, where this felt like this was just let's just push this out within 12 months, but I felt like they had a lot of the assets, they wanted to try and, make a complete product that wasn't trying to push any barriers, and it did that. So in that regard, a lot of people will enjoy this, but I don't think a lot of people are going to be writing about this in 30 years saying how Resident Evil 3 changed the game for Resident Evil, that's for sure. But all in all, that is it, people. Tomorrow, are we doing Valorant tomorrow? Hopefully we're doing Valorant.
We're going to have, well, I don't know if we'll do it tomorrow, but we'll do Valorant this week, because we actually did get beta codes for Valorant. So we will be able to do some coverage for that. Looking forward to that. All the content creators on the planet are so thirsty for it. It's going to be hilarious to watch it. And we'll tell you how it plays. That's it.
And we'll tell you how it plays. Good. Okay.
That's it.
Laymen out.